I don't know if Rocky Horror is considered an independent film. It was really out there. But the next year they showed films like A Bigger Splash and Eraserhead was the second year. And even Thundercrack, the Midnight movie, was, you know, I'd say that was very independent. And then by the third or fourth year, they were really showing a lot of small films. They showed films like, maybe by the fourth year, let's see. No, maybe the fifth year. That looks like a big independent year. They showed movies like Best Boy, which is a documentary.
I saw it. I like that.
Yeah. Heartland, Head Over Heels. You know, probably the fourth or fifth year was when they started doing that. I think their emphasis really has gotten much bigger in the last 4 or 5 years, but they've always been a champion of small independent film, which I've really appreciated. There's films by Robert Young. They've played a lot of his, Robert M. Young, I think is his name, and they've played a lot of his films, and I'd never seen his film before, and I'm a big fan of him. I'm surprised he's not more popular than he was. Things like Alambrista and The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez and something else I was just looking at here, but I've always enjoyed his films. I think they're very moving and very personal films with low budget, but have a lot of things to say.
How did you get into foreign film? Because most people just generally go to movies at the multiplex and then they say, "Oh, that's it." Do you recall any film that started you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do remember. You know, I've been interested in movies since probably age 10 or 11. I think I went to earlier films, Walt Disney films and whatnot, but I remember seeing as a double feature with some Walt Disney film. It was a film called The Silent Partner, which isn't it wasn't a foreign film, but it was very adult for me at the time, and I remember being quite surprised. I must have been 10 or 12 at the time. But I didn't get into foreign films probably until I was in college, and I remember that they had film courses in college and film series that I would go to, and I remember one night, or one afternoon in particular, there was a triple feature of Ingmar Bergman films at the Ridgemont Theater over in Greenwood, and they did show a lot of foreign films. And I think I might have seen a few before that, but I'd never seen an Ingmar Bergman film before, and so I went with a couple friends, and for the first mistake I made was that I had packed myself a little lunch, and I had pretzels in a bag, and they were crunching all over, and I immediately realized that that's the wrong movie food to take with you. But one of the films was called, I think it was called Hour of the Wolf, and I might be wrong in that title. I can double check that, but it was a very strange, kind of intense film. All of Ingmar Bergman's films are very intense, and I remember one scene in particular where a man goes into it's like a castle, and there's a big slab in the middle of the room, and there's obviously a body laying under the sheet, and he pulls off the sheet, and there's a nude woman laying on the slab, and he walks over to the woman. Apparently somebody he knows. I can't really remember the plot very well, but he starts with his hand at the top of her head and just very slowly, and the camera kind of zooms in on his hand very slowly, moves it down her face and down her neck and across her breasts and down her stomach, and the theater is just absolutely dead quiet. I mean, you could hear a pin drop, and gets down to her private areas, and I couldn't help it. I just went, you know, I just started laughing, and because I'd never seen anything so intense, I'd never seen anything so adult, I'd never seen nudity. I mean, to me, it was just kind of an uncomfortable experience, and of course, the theater just erupts with laughter. I mean, I really did ruin the mood for a lot of people, I'm afraid, but it was a very funny experience that I sort of regret, but I never forgot. But I still remember the film, a lot of imagery, and after that I went back to see a lot of Ingmar Bergman films, and I kind of became a fan that way. And to me, I don't even notice when a film is foreign or subtitled. People, I'll be recommending films to somebody, and they'll say, "Well, isn't that subtitled?" And I have to stop and think. Well, yeah, maybe. I guess it is. It's Dutch, or it's German, or it's Japanese, or whatever. And I guess I think it's sort of a learned thing. I mean, once you start seeing a lot, it just becomes second nature to be reading the subtitles instead of hearing it. I mean, you're still hearing it, and you're still seeing it, but I don't pay attention too much to whether it's subtitled or not. That doesn't prevent me from seeing a film that I'm interested in.
I guess the thing I would ask everyone, with so many films to choose from, what's your strategy for picking films, and has it kind of evolved over the years, or has it pretty much remained the same when you choose films to go to?
My strategy. There's so many films now that it really is hard to see everything. I mean, I take time off work to go. I take a couple weeks vacation and a bunch of trades, so I have about 3 weeks off during that time period. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to some of the press screenings, which I really appreciate. So I think I get to see even more films than most. I've been averaging about 100. That seems to be as many as I can handle in a 6-week period. But so, at the press screenings, I just watch whatever they're showing. I don't have any way to decide whether I'm going to stay or not. And actually, I've appreciated that, because I've seen a lot of films at the press screening that I might not have scheduled in because I didn't think I would be interested in. One in particular I remember was Sherman's March, the documentary by Ross. Yeah, and I had didn't think I had a particular interest in seeing that, and it turned out to be one of my very favorite films at the festival. And I saw it at a screening because it just came on the screen, and I had no idea what it was or what I was about to see. But the rest of the time, I guess it's just a matter of interest. I try to see films that are by directors that I have enjoyed in the past. I try to see, especially now that they have the American independent films, I try to see a lot of those, and I try to see the ones that are, what do they call them? They call them the balloted films, where they vote for, they're in the front of the book, I can't remember what they're called now. New Director Showcase, those are the ones. I find those to be pretty interesting, and I think most new directors will push the edge a little bit more than a director that's made 5 or 10 films. So I see just about all those. If it's a choice between that and something unknown, then I'll probably go see a new director's film. And then, it's odd, because sometimes there'll be, sometimes there's 5 movies playing at the same time that I want to see, and other times there's nothing that I think I want to see. So then I just kind of pick by subject matter or convenience. What theater am I going to be at? How long is it going to be? Is it going to give me time to go to another film?
What's your strategy for the consumption of food? I notice we're going to movies from like 5 to like 11. You got to grab a bite like sometime. What's your strategy?
It's tough. I start screenings at 10 o'clock, and I'm there sometimes for 6 films. So I always try to pack lunch. Something soft and quiet. No pretzels in bags. And I eat between movies. Sometimes I have to eat during the movie, but I make sure that it's quiet and doesn't smell and make a noise and whatnot. And I know all the fast places around the Egyptian that you can run to get a sandwich. And I think it's really important to try to eat healthy, because it's really easy to just grab popcorn or candy. And even though you're sitting watching film for 10 hours, I think it's really important to be healthy, because it really wears you down. I mean, I'm so exhausted by the end of the day, I can barely make it home and crawl into bed. And so I try to exercise a lot too. I get up early and try to run. And I'm always standing and stretching between films and walking around, because it's a lot of work. Physically, it's a lot of work. Mentally, it's overload. I think as I'm getting older, it's harder for me to go to more than I can see 4 movies a day comfortably. The 5th one, it gets really tough, and the 6th one, it's really, really hard. I did 6 maybe 2 or 3 times this past year, and I was just exhausted the next day. I couldn't handle it. And there's some people that will even stay and see the 7th or 8th film if it's a midnight screening, and I mean, by that time I'm just comatose. I'm not, and nothing is going in to my head, and all I want to do is sleep. So I have to respect my limits. And
so have you done any of the other festival things, like the poster auction or anything? Or?
Yeah, I used to work at the poster auction for the first couple of years. I would stand up and hold the posters. And actually, that was quite fun. I bought a few posters, although I'm not a big poster collector. I just don't really have the room or the energy to do that. And after a couple of years, the poster prices just started to really skyrocket. And I've worked for an airline or for a travel industry for most of my life, so I can go to these other countries and get a poster and I've brought a few home myself. So I don't see the sense of paying $200 for a French version of Diva or whatever it is when, I could go and get one myself for $20 or whatever. But yeah, that's been pretty interesting. I haven't gone the last couple of years just because it's always opposite 4 other films that I haven't quite seen yet, and I just don't collect posters like I used to. Now I collect postcards, movie postcards. They're smaller. They're all in that book there. And I collect videos, but I try to limit myself. I try to buy unusual videos that were really personal to me. I don't like to buy blockbuster stuff that everyone has seen. I don't see any point of owning one of those.
The other thing I ask people, and you can say whatever you want, about how would you change a festival, or is there anything, any improvements that you want to see with the festival, or?
It's kind of odd thing to say, but I almost wish the festival would scale back a little bit and not show 210 films, but just stick with 150 or less. I feel really frustrated that I can't see more films. There's always films that I miss that I really want to see, and hopefully a lot of them come back, but a lot of them don't. And I almost wish it would just be held at a fewer number of venues, but I think that it's gotten so big that there's probably no chance of doing that anymore. Which is fine. As long as they're making money and they can keep doing it, I think it's a great way to see films. And you see films that you don't get a chance to see or that you wouldn't otherwise see. And I really appreciate the people that I've met there, and I have a group of buddies that I see very intensely for a 6-week period, and then I see them at screenings, or sometimes we get together at parties or whatnot. It's a whole nother circle. My friends and family, my other friends and family go, "Are you nuts? You're spending 5 weeks just sitting in the dark." And I say, "Well, it's more than that. It's I'm seeing things that I wouldn't get a chance to see any other place. Films that I wouldn't be able to experience, and to me, it's a learning experience. I feel like I've gotten. I should be earning a college degree for all the films that I've seen."
So what have you learned about the world from all the foreign films that you've seen?
Oh, well, people are pretty much the same wherever you go. That's one thing. I think that a good film will transcend any language barrier that it has. I think a good film will transcend any subject matter. I have people even at the festival go, "Oh, I'm not going to see that film. That's about a mass murderer," or "I don't want to see that film. It's sexuality, or it's gay, or it's violence against women, or whatever." Well, I mean that's true, but maybe part of that is true. But I feel like if it's a really good film, it'll transcend its subject matter. And I've been very surprised if I just go to see films that I didn't think I'd like, or didn't know anything about, and I'll come out enlightened, you know. Oh gosh, I learned something. You know, I think I pick up words and customs, and
I guess the other thing I was going to ask you, the reason why I kind of first met you was through your movie list that you wrote. And, you know, I guess you've been doing it for a couple times. And how did you come up with doing that, writing comments about movies?
I did it because of popular demand. Well, not that popular, but friends and family that don't go to that many movies, they're always saying, well, what did you see? What did you like? What can you recommend? And, you know, when someone asks me cold calling like that, you know, my mind just goes absolutely blank. So it's easier for me to say, I've got my list right here. And I try to do it twice a year, although this year I haven't done it for the festival yet. I just didn't have the energy, and I was busy doing other things. But you know, I like to champion films that don't get shown at 5,000 theaters around the country. I mean, I think it's a pity that there's not more opportunity to see films, because I know that there's a lot of people that would really, really like little movies like that. You know, for example, my sister doesn't see that many movies, and you know, I'm always sending her a list and recommending things. And this wasn't a film festival film, but it was Mike Leigh's last film, Secrets and Lies, and it was at the top of my year-end list. And I sent the list to my sister, hoping that she'd take it to the video store, and she did. She took it to the video store and she saw Secrets and Lies, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to get it." And I didn't, you know, I thought she'd like it, but you know, you never really know. And she called me up a week later and says, "I just saw the best movie I've ever seen in 10 years. And she said, "I was interrupted 3 or 4 times with the kids coming down and whatnot, but she said, I just sat entranced with this film." And she cried and cried and cried through the whole thing, and she loved it so much she was planning to rent it again. And to me, that's kind of exciting when I can get people to discover a film that they wouldn't normally see. There's a woman at work who just last night, as I was leaving, she and her husband go out to movies kind of regularly, although they don't see too many foreign films. And she said, "Jeff, there's nothing to see. What can you recommend?" And she said, "Everything is just so kind of stupid and full of explosions and whatnot." And so I happened to have a copy of Variety with me, and so I, you know, because my mind again was blank, and I said, "Well, The Full Monty." She says, "Oh, The Full Monty. I think I saw an ad for that." And I said, "Yeah, you know, that won the audience award at this year's festival. I mean, you should definitely see that." And then I kind of went down and I said, "You know, here's another one." There goes my mind again. Mrs. Brown. I said, "A terrific film." She said, "Oh, is that good? I was wondering about that." I said, "Yeah, you'd love it. It's, you know, Masterpiece Theater quality, but it's even better." "Oh, wow, I love Masterpiece Theater." And you know, so I was, and Shall We Dance? She hadn't heard of that one, and I said, "Yeah, it's been playing all summer," and you know, it's at a couple little theaters. And she said, "Well, I'm gonna go." You know, so I feel like if I can just steer a few people to some of the good stuff instead of some of the direct that comes out, especially in August. I'll
let you get that, and then
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I keep seeing a spot here, and
So have you gone to any of the parties? The opening night films, like I guess because they show Braveheart, and every year they open up the big film.
Yeah, I used to work at the parties too. Yeah, I used to be a server or ticket tearer or something, and I'd get to go to the parties. And then I haven't gone lately too much. I did go to the Braveheart opening because that was kind of fun. I took a group from work and we went and had a great time. I ended up in the very front row just because they blocked off so many seats. There wasn't either was way in the back or way in the front, so I ended up in the front row. And actually, it turned out very well because. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not your fault. Let me get this thing around. Okay, there. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, ended up at the front row, and of course it was right where Mel Gibson came out from the side, and he walked right past me. I was, you know, could have poked him, and and up on the stage, and of course we had a great view of his little speech, and then he walked right by me to go out, so it was kind of nice to see him up close and personal. And it's just a lot of fun, the parties, even if the movies aren't sometimes the greatest. But actually, I think I shouldn't say that. There's only been a few years when I've been disappointed with their opening film, but one was something Chicago Joe and the Showgirl.
I remember that.
And let's see, there was one other one that I didn't particularly care for. And sometimes the ending film is not so hot. In fact, I think last year I just hated Kansas City. I mean, I was really disappointed in that movie, even though there was a few interesting things going on, and I really enjoyed the music. In fact, I don't think I have the soundtrack, but I kept thinking I was going to go out and get the soundtrack. But I thought the movie just was really lame, the plot and the other things that were happening, and I hissed at the end of the movie. I don't normally do that, but I was really angry that Robert Altman had gotten so lazy with the plot and the direction. But otherwise, I think he's a terrific director.
So do you do anything funny with your Full Festival Pass picture, or do you just take a picture of yourself, or?
No, I don't. I don't do anything funny. I always try to look good. But they don't look good anyway, so I guess I should be funnier with them. I think I found a few of them. I couldn't find this year's, but here's some of them. But they all pretty much look the same. I'm just 93.
Okay.
95. I can't remember what year this was. I can't see what year it was. My eyes, I don't know if it has the year on it or not. And then of course, there's always these pictures that Steve takes or someone else takes. This was me about, 10 years ago. And, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
This was the, it's not a very good picture of me. I got all whited out, but this was the Braveheart party with some friends. And this is with Judy and Diane, two of my movie buddies from the festival.
You can tell them about me.
Actually, Judy Coven would be one that you'd want to get in touch with. I think you said you got in touch with Diane.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll respond. This was a couple of years ago. Some of my friends, Ruth Haler, she works for the festival.
Yeah.
She does a lot of programming, and Mitch, he comes up from Portland, and Larry, and Joe, and I'm not sure who that woman is, but. Looks like, I think that was from 1995, at least that's what it's been marked down on the back. It's a friend who used to go to the movies for the first 10 years or so. Those are all that I could dig up on short notice like that, but Steve probably has a lot more.
Yeah.
He's great, he's just great.
So any embarrassing stories about your friends that you want to illuminate me on?
Let's see. I have sort of an embarrassing story about myself. This was when the films were at the Broadway and the Harvard Exit, and it was fairly recent, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but I was running from one theater to another, and I got there last minute, and I got one of the last seats at the Broadway market, and I was sitting next to Vince, and we chatted for a couple minutes, and then the movie, started promptly, and I must have sat there for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I realized, I said, turned to Mitch, I said, what's the name of this movie? And he said, well, it's The Well, it's from Romania or something. I said, oh, isn't this The Boys of St. Peter's or something? I'd gone to the wrong film. I mean, not a big deal, and it's certainly something that a lot of people do, I'm sure, if they're not paying attention, but of course at that point it was too late to move, and it turned out that The Well was actually quite a good movie, but I felt kind of foolish, and we had a good laugh about that. Any other embarrassing story? I'm sure that there are some.
Or they don't have to be embarrassed. Anything else
Oh.
you want to say about the festival, or say about meeting people, or certain friends that you've made? Or?
You know, one thing about the festival is that you've got this captive audience of people that you keep seeing. So I think it really gives you a good groundwork to build friends with. And even if you don't like the same movies, it gives you something to talk about or argue about. And it always amazes me how you can get 100 people to see the very same film and you get 100 different opinions about the film. I mean, half of them will think it's the best film in the festival and the other half think it's one of the worst. And that's always amazed me lately, especially. Sometimes I think I'm too easy on films. People are always grumbling about the festival. I don't know if maybe they've seen too many, or they're just too picky, or they picked the wrong ones. I remember one year in particular, this was a few years ago, and I saw Diane the first night, and then I didn't see her for 3 weeks, or until the last week, and I said, "Where have you been?" And she said, "Where have you been?" And we looked at we were kind of keeping a running tally of the movies we'd seen, and we'd seen completely different films the whole festival. And it's easy to do that when you've got 200 films that you're choosing or you're picking from, because most people, even the full series people probably only see 60 to 100 films. Yeah. And we had just picked different films, so that I thought that was kind of interesting.
That has happened to me. I've seen people for weeks.
Yeah.
I've been going every day.
Yeah, I've been here every day to every film. Where have you been?
I hardly saw you this year, I think, because we chose totally different movies.
Yeah, we must have. But I thought this was a pretty solid year. I mean, I think I saw more films this year that I disliked. But again, it was probably just a matter of picking the wrong ones. But I still saw some very good stuff, and even some of the films that I didn't particularly care for, I probably still would have seen because they sounded interesting to me. And I almost think that in all the years I've been going, I don't think I've walked out of more than a handful of films, maybe 4 or 5 films in how many? What year are we up to? 20.
I guess 24th.
24th.
24th
Yeah.
is coming up. Yeah.
23 years. I don't think I've walked out of one film a year. I'm less than one film a year, I'm sure. I mean, and usually the only reason I walk out is because either it's just really tedious for me and really boring, or I'm so tired I can hardly stay awake. I think last year that happened to me during a Swedish film, story. I'm a Girl, or a Story of a Girl, or it was a big long film, and it was I thought it was pretty interesting, but about half hour into the film, I could not stay awake. I mean, I had drunk coffee, and it was my 5th film of the night, and I was just exhausted, and I thought, well, this is crazy. I don't want to sleep, and so I'll probably start to snore or drool or something. So I said, oh, excuse me, I better go home now. But and that's happened a couple times too. But so I think, considering the thousands of films I've seen at the festival, there's only been a handful of films that I really have disliked, and there's been another bushelful that I didn't care for at all, but at the same time, a lot of people really liked some of those films, so I can't be judgmental about their poor taste.
I'm happy with the festival.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I think it's a good way to do it. This is my son Sam. He goes to a few things.
That's pretty much it. I appreciate your time, Jeff.
Okay.
Talking to me, and I got some wonderful insight. I don't know who else I could talk to that's gone to the festival for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
I think Larry's gone to most of the festivals.
I think so.
Yeah, the guy that shoots the pictures.
Yeah. And Vince. Well, no, I think Vince didn't start till about the 3rd or 4th.
Well, that pretty much counts 20 years or so.
Yeah. Judy started probably about the 3rd or 4th. So there's not too many of us that have been around since the very first one.
I know Ruth Sabers has gone for a long time. She said she has the very first program.
Oh, Ruth Haler?
So Saber, she has grayish. She's friends with Ellen Cohn, and she. Oh, Well, point.
Is she in here?
Yeah, she might be in there.
This is just a wonderful book. I'm so glad that Rox and Paul and Steve did this.
She's in there. I can probably find it.
What's her name, Ruth?
Yeah, let's see if I can find it. She might be in there. She's been going for 20 years. I can probably find it.
There's only one Ruth listed, and I think that might be Haler. But
let's see if she's in there. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Yeah, maybe she didn't make it, but she's been going for 20 years.
yeah, and that's another thing. You know, it's been really interesting. There's been people that have died on us. I can't believe it, but and they haven't been that old, or I didn't think they were that old or that sick. But when you have that tight-knit community, it's sort of a shock when you lose someone that, you know, like one of my very best friends, David Bumbar, died a few years ago, I think 91. I think he's in that book. And he was great. He used to save seats. We'd save seats for each other, and we'd plan strategy together. And, you know, what are we going to see today? And, well, if you get there and you're there at that earlier show, would you save me a seat for the second show? And whatnot. He died quite suddenly and quite young. I think it was 91 or 92.
Because Sly was talking about him. He said that was his first friend that he met at the festival.
Yeah, it was. David was a very social butterfly. I mean, he would just talk to everyone and anyone. He was so friendly and gregarious and talked real fast. And yeah, in fact, I know it was because Sly used to sit right behind us. In the Egyptian, we would sit in the same area, kind of on the left side facing the screen in the front, towards the back of that front row by the exit there, and Sly would sit there with his friends Tina and his buddy from New Orleans, Dennis, I think is his name. And yeah, David knew everybody. That was a real shock when David died. And
the insights you can share about this person. I mean, you don't have to take a long time, but you know what kind of person was he? And
he was really interesting guy. He'd been in the Peace Corps, and then he taught English as a second language, and he actually had lived in Indonesia for a number of years, 7 or 8 years, and I remember at his house he had a lot of batik and Indonesian artifacts, and he lived in Japan for a while. He really liked Asia quite a bit. And then when he moved back to Seattle, he taught English as a second language at Seattle Central Community College. So he worked with a lot of Cambodian and Laotian and Vietnamese people coming in. And he was just very generous person, very sweet-natured, and you know, a couple times he would have parties, and a lot of film people would show up there. And he would I just remember him just kind of moving from person to person, just making sure everyone was happy and comfortable, and doing whatever needed to be done for them. I'm just going to show you this picture. I think it's in here somewhere.
I might have seen it.
Yeah, this is David right here.
Let me zoom in on that. I think I may have seen him.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that.
Because I've been going to the festival on and off since '85, and I just started.
Yeah.
Getting a full series the last 3 years.
Yeah, you probably knew him. I mean, he seemed to know everybody. I mean, he knew people that would sit on the opposite side of the theater that I had never seen before. So he was quite social that way. And it's just been nice to know a lot of people from the festival. And
hopefully I'll make it back this year.
Well, where are you going to school?
I'm going to go to Stanford for 2 years. So.
And what program?
Documentary, film, and video.
Oh, great! Yeah.
So I'm hoping I have enough ammunition to show my professor. Say, hey, I gotta finish this project.
Yeah.
So I'll see what she says.
Oh, good. Have you haven't been there before?
No, so I'm just starting out.
Okay, this is a master's, did you say?
Master's in documentary.
Well, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. but I'm getting kind of worried because
Oh.
I guess you can start talking whatever you want to say at the festival. Then I'll jump in if I have to jump in or something. If you want to talk about being a full series pass holder, meeting people, and
Okay.
adventures you've had.
Okay. Well, first of all, I moved here about 5 years ago, and I immediately joined Cinema Seattle because I love film and always have. And I didn't get to go to the series the first year because I had just moved in May, so it was too much. The second year, I did a stupid thing. I made plans to go back east, and I only saw 2 movies the second year. So after I got my fill of the 2 movies, I realized that this is something that I really want to do. So 3 years in a row now, I've been going to the series. And the first year, I went with a couple of friends of mine, and after that, we saw all those movies. They had it. I mean, they couldn't. It was too grueling. First of all, the parking is hideous. I mean, you really can't find a place to park. So they didn't go after that. And the second year, I was debating whether or not I would do it again. And I decided to do it even though I had to go by myself. So I went, and I met a lot of very nice people, Doug being one of them. And it's very grueling. I find it to be almost a love-hate relationship because you really have to plan it out. Things never work out. I know that I'm one of the ones that really map everything out. And then, of course, you meet somebody along the way and they saw something else that you feel that you want to see. So they tell you, oh, you have to see this, then it changes all your plans. So for the entire 3 weeks, you're constantly changing your schedule, figuring out which movies you can fit in. So that was the second year, and it was very grueling. I didn't think I was going to do it again because you really basically don't have any time to yourself or anything. And I did not eat a hot meal in the whole time that I was doing it. All I had was sandwiches that I brought to the movie. But then when it came time to renew for this year, I said, oh, well, I think I'm going to do this again because it's this love-hate relationship. And then when I did it, I said, oh, why did I do this? It's too much. And the good thing about it is that the good and bad thing is I was unemployed. I had lost my job just prior to signing up for the series. And I said, well, at least I'll be able to see every movie that I want to see. And then you still don't have enough time, even though you have all the time. I did not miss a day. I went to all the press screenings. I find that the most pressurized, it is very pressurized because you don't know what's coming up or where you're going to park. And if you're in one theater, you have to worry about going to another theater. A lot of the time I'm in the movie just thinking about, oh God, I have to get out of here and I have to go get the car and I have to go run to the next theater and park it. But given all of that, I've decided that now this third year has now hooked me, and now I'm looking forward to the next one. I cannot believe I'm saying this. I saw 83 movies, which that was a lot for me. I mean, all my friends, they think I'm crazy, actually, especially my friends back east. They haven't got the foggiest idea. I just got finished. I wrote a synopsis of every movie that I saw, all 83, and then I gave a recommended list with stars on the ones that are the most important and the ones that are least important. And I just got finished printing them up because when I was back east this last time, everybody asked me for my recommendations. So comes out to 4 pages, and I just going to mail that off to everybody. But the reason that I like it so much is I really feel as if I've been away for 3 weeks all around the world because you go to every country that you can imagine. Places probably that I've never been, and I have traveled quite extensively. But all over the world, and just odd places that I never thought I would ever see. And you get to see the different cultures of the countries. It's very educational, and get a great deal of respect for the filmmakers because it's hard to imagine that everybody's making all these movies all over the world. And of course now it's spoiled you because you don't want to go to any Hollywood movies because they're really awful when you compare them to the wonderful creative genius of some of these people, and they can't even get their films distributed, which is a shame. And running out of things to say.
That's okay. Well, what's your strategy when you get the schedule? How do you choose
Okay.
movies?
Well, first I look, I'm very annoyed because I think that the book that they give out should come out prior to at least a week in advance because I use Seattle Weekly's schedule. But the book really gives a huge synopsis of what the movies are about, whereas Seattle Weekly only gives a paragraph. So I always go through the weekly. I read every single movie, and then I highlight all the movies that I want to see, and usually it's about 200. And then I have to schedule them. That takes about a day. I mean, it takes at least a day or at least 8 hours. You schedule all the movies because you want to know when to see the ones. Then I go to the film festival and I get the book, and then I do the whole thing all over again because their synopsis is so much clearer and better and more extensive than what's in the paper. So a lot of the times I miss movies that didn't sound good in the paper, and now I have to reschedule everything all over again. But basically, I highlight everything, and sometimes I have some conflicts on the days, and then I just decide on that day. I'll read what sounds good, where my car is, where I'm going to leave from, and all of that. And that's how I schedule it out. But it's always changing and very grueling. I keep saying grueling because I think
That's okay.
I'm never home. I mean, you're just never home. One day was the most movies I've ever seen in a full day. I left the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got home at midnight. I saw every movie that day, including all the press screenings. But I liked it. People are always asking me, well, how could you remember all those movies? And I do. I mean, sometimes I forget the name, but the minute I look up what it's about, I remember right away what the movie was about. And as a matter of fact, when I went back east this time, of course, I've seen every movie. There's like nothing. Everybody wants to go to the movies, and I had seen everything. So I had to see one over again, which I was glad. The Full Monty.
Oh.
It was so funny even the second time. That was worth seeing again. What else?
So how did all this madness start with foreign film?
Oh, that's a good point. First of all, I've always been a movie lunatic. When I was a kid, I would rather sit in the house and watch movies than go out with my friends. And my mother was always complaining, why are you sitting in the house? But I loved when everybody was out of the house. I had a nice, comfortable chair. And in New York in those days, there were a lot of movie channels. There was no cable, but we got like the $1 Million Movie and the Late Show and the Early Show. And I would stay up all night watching. These were movies, like old movies. So I became, unbeknownst to me, sort of like a knowledgeable person about movies, but this was not anything that I thought about. Then, as I got older and people started to talk more about movies, I realized I knew a lot about movies. I knew a lot of movie stars, a lot of minor actors that nobody knows. I know all who they are and everything. And then movies became very popular, so I became one of 100 million people. So I really always loved the movies. When I came, and I liked foreign films, but I never saw a lot of foreign films because in New York there are only few. All the art houses that showed foreign films started to be bought up, and before you know it, there's like only one theater in Manhattan that has really good selection of foreign films, and that was just bought by Cineplex Odeon. So little by little, it was very difficult to see foreign films because the population here in this country they don't spend the money on the foreign films, so it's hard. And I really started to get involved with foreign films when I came out here and I went to the first film festival. I always liked them and saw them when I could, but my knowledge of that area is not as extensive as it is with American-made movies. And that's when I really decided that that's the ones that I really liked and only go to see. If I could, I would only see foreign films. I think they're so much better, especially when they make a film like, I guess it was The Vanishing, where I think it was Dutch. Do you know if it was?
Yeah,
it was Dutch. That movie was fantastic in the original language, and then they remade it here, and it was. I didn't even go, but I mean, I would never go. We always do that. Make Three Men in a Cradle was French, and that was so much better in France than it was when we remade it. We just can't do a good job. So that's how I got involved with foreign films. And
have you ever done the Secret Film Festival, or is it?
No. The reason I don't do the Secret Film Festival or the film Filmmakers Forum, even though I would like to, I find that it cuts into the time of seeing the movies. And a lot of I'm sure there were movies that I haven't seen in the Secret Festival, but I don't know what they are. And it just cuts into the time. Plus, it's extra money. And I thought $250 or whatever I paid is enough. So I haven't done that. But when I lived in New York, I belonged to, I guess it was a 13-week course. They call it a movie, it's a course, but it really is a preview of a movie. And then they always had the director or producer. It was from the School of Visual Arts. And I did that like 5 years in a row, 2 semesters a year. So I started to see a lot of independent films at that course that I took, and I got involved with independent films in that regard. I mean, Alan Rudolph used to come all the time and screen his movies, and he's not a very well-known filmmaker amongst the masses.
So have you had any star encounters at SIFF, or
any what?
Any star encounters with movie stars or directors? Or?
No, I haven't. But one interesting thing, I was in California last year during the film festival. I had to go away on business. I was very annoyed about that. And I was in LA getting on the plane to come back to Seattle. And who's standing there but Alan Rudolph? Now, a very nondescript, quiet sort of guy. And I went up to him and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Are you Alan Rudolph?" And he looked at me like, "Oh God," you know. And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, I just have to tell you, I absolutely think you're fantastic. I love your films. I've seen everything you've done." And then he perked up.
Yeah.
He got excited with that. And we had a long conversation. And they're calling people on the plane. And you know how they call first class?
Yeah.
And he's standing there with me chatting away. He lives on Bainbridge. And he's chatting, and I said, "Aren't you going?" And he says, "No." I said, "Well, don't you sit in first class?" He said, "Are you kidding? First class? I can't afford to sit first class," which I thought was pretty amazing, that he couldn't afford to sit in first class, or that he wouldn't. So I asked him if he was going to the film festival, and he said he hadn't gone, and he thought about going. But that surprised me, too, but I thought a filmmaker would be interested in going to the film festival. And no, the other stars I've seen were just the ones that came, you know, to talk about their movie. I never really met anybody. And I don't usually, I mean, Alan Rudolph was a different thing because he's not really a star, but if I saw a star, I would never walk up to them or say anything. I just look at them.
Do you have any, I guess the last 3 years, some of the friends you've met, or some of the
Yes.
adventures you've gone through?
Yes, okay. Well, as I say, I went to the film festival alone, so I have met a lot of people, and it's very interesting because as you're waiting online, you get to talk with whoever's standing next to you. So you get their impressions of films they've seen. And there is sort of like a clique of people that, you know, go to every movie. And I think they're absolutely unbelievable. I mean, they sit in the front row, which is, I don't know how anybody could see a movie in the front row. And I don't really get involved with the groups like that because I'm not like a joiner. But I have met this one friend of mine who I only see at the film festival. His name is Hoy. And he is the most knowledgeable person I've ever met when it comes to movies. He knows every movie, foreign film, I say, "Did you happen to see?" He saw it and he remembered it. And he's recommended a lot of movies to me, especially Hong Kong movies. He's Vietnamese, but he loves Hong Kong movies. So I met him. And then, of course, Greg and
Craig, yeah.
Craig
Yeah.
and Yoko.
Yeah.
And I met him the first year, and I got friendly with him. And then, you know, every time I see them, and of course anytime I see you, we talk about what you've seen. And that's about it on the people. What else?
Well, and the other thing do you have any suggestions for changing the festival? Or
Yeah, I do. My suggestion would, first of all, I think the seats are absolutely disgraceful, especially in the Egyptian. I think it's absolutely disgraceful that theater does not replace those seats. They are the most uncomfortable seat, and the floor slopes. There's like a hill. It goes down like this, and then it goes up and down. And if you happen to sit in the last row of the first section, you can't read the writing, and all the foreign films are filmed there, and you can't read the writing. It doesn't matter, and even if you're sitting on the high part, you still can't read the writing. It's very uncomfortable, and it is the theater that is like the home base for the film festival. I know there is a lot of nostalgia involved with it, but I do believe they have to replace those seats. It's a disgrace. They could charge people, because it's a regular movie theater, they charge people money to go in and sit on those seats. I think it's disgraceful. So that's my one major complaint. The other theaters are not as uncomfortable, but they are, the seats are very cramped, but they're not as uncomfortable as in that theater. I think it's terrible. And I also don't think that the film festival should be held in all those different movies in different neighborhoods. I think it should be in one neighborhood so that you could park your car and go to the movies, walk around from movie to movie. The thought of having to park your car and then get in the car and go to the Guild and worry. I've missed a lot of movies because I couldn't get over there in time. But I think, and I know people will hate me for saying this, but I think it should be at a big movie mall, like a
Multiplex.
Thank you, multiplex. I know everybody would hate it, but you park your car, you go in, you sit down, and you can walk from movie to movie. There's food, you can eat. I mean, this is that's why I call it grueling, because I'm already pressurized now talking about it. I'm getting already angst over worrying about where I'm going to park my car. And I refuse to park it in the parking lot because that's like $5 a day. It's too expensive. So that's my big gripe. As far as, and I also think that I don't need 270 movies. I mean, I think that it's much too long. I mean, I go and I love it, but I think it's too long. I know there's a hardcore that thinks it's too short, but I think it's too long, and it's very difficult to see all the movies. I'd rather have it less movies and see them all, rather than just see. Turn the water off.
Okay.
It's all right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. So you've done the mad dash between theaters. I remember the Just a Girl, I think it was a year ago or something, that you made that mad dash.
Right. Oh,
You
it was,
tell
I
the
almost
story.
didn't, yes. Actually, a friend of mine, Hoy, we both wanted to see this movie, Just a Girl, and it was at the Guilds. And I think the movie we were going to see was Italian, and I have to see all the Italian movies. I forgot the name of it, but it was at the Harvard exit. And I would say we had about 20 minutes to get from the Guild to the Harvard exit, park the car, and run in. And I think if it wasn't for him, I would never have done that, because I was able to go and save the seat, and he went and put the car in the parking lot. But just knowing at the end you can't read the credits, you have to get up and run out. It takes the fun out of it and the enjoyment out of it. How do you feel about multiplex?
I think they should keep it on Broadway and just keep it Egyptian, Broadway, and Harvard. But I think the reason they have it in other neighborhoods, it services another segment of the population, the college students. So that's why they have to have it one in the U District. That's my
Why
theory.
can't they get to Capitol Hill?
I don't know. That's my. I went to the festival first because it was in the U District when I was going to college. So
Oh.
there's another market they tap into. And plus, the Guild's a very large theater. That's why they have films.
Yes. Well, then why don't they use the Metro?
I think
Too
it's-
small?
Yeah, the screens are too small and it's not big enough.
Well, I don't know. I just think it's horrible. If they changed the seats, if they didn't have one out of the way, then I think it would be all right. That's my major complaints. I have no other complaints. I think it's very well run. I think they do a very good job. Sure, things break down, or the sound isn't right, but I mean, I don't know why we have to blame them. People
I'm not looking for
complain.
blame,
No. People complain. I mean, they're doing I think they do a fantastic job. They get all those stars in. They introduce them. I think it's fantastic. They do a very good job. A lot of volunteers work very hard. I commend them.
So you have any seating preferences in theaters?
Oh,
that change?
yes. I have seats in every theater.
You can tell me. You tell me
Oh,
all
all right.
all your strategies.
Okay. Well, in the Guild, let's see. The Guild and the Harvard exit, I sit on the side because those seats are not situated in such a way that you can see over somebody's head. So I sit on the aisle on the side in both of those theaters because then you can put I'm tall and I can put my legs out and you get a very good view and it's fine. So in those theaters, that's where I sit. In the Egyptian, I like to sit on the side as well, but those seats are so bad that there's a certain seat. One seat in the third row from the first section in the back that I sit in that's not as uncomfortable as the others. But when it's a foreign film and there's writing on the subtitles, then I go to sit in the side and I suffer. That's what I do. Because there is a row of seats on each side in the back, the last row on each side in the back that's very comfortable. They must have replaced those seats, and they're very good. But they're not as easy to see the subtitles from those as in further in the front. So it's hard, very hard. But I do have my favorite seats that I sit on, and I put my jacket down, and I love it when I could stay at the theater the whole time. But they let the film series pass holders in earlier, and so you really have no problem getting the seat you want. You know, I would give up the seat and take another seat. It's not so bad.
I guess the other thing I ask people, one final thing about the pictures for the passes. How do you choose your picture? Do you?
Oh, I just go, no, I don't make a big deal out of that either. I mean, I did go to those machines that make the machine. No, I know a lot of people put on hats and they do all sorts of things. I'm not into that. I just go to the place and stand there where they take the pictures and take a picture, pay them the $3. Because I'm always picking up the pass at the last minute. I don't have time to get the picture. I always plan, I'm going to get a good picture this time. I'm going to make my own picture, and I never do. I just go in and get the picture.
I noticed you have are those your two favorite movies?
Yes, well, Audrey Hepburn is my favorite actress. And Sabrina, yeah, they are. It's my two favorite movies. And there's a poster place in Hollywood that I go to that has the most fantastic Hollywood posters. Movie posters, vintage. And I got these because I love those two movies. I have the two movies, and they're my two favorite Audrey Hepburn movies. And I even named my cat, I got my cat shortly after Audrey Hepburn died, and I named her Audrey Hepburn. I call her Audrey, but she's Audrey Hepburn. So I do it, I love Audrey Hepburn.
So have you ever done the poster auction or?
No, I don't do that either because once again it eats into watching the movie. I mean, they schedule it at a time when I want to see another film, and I'd rather see the new film than give that time up and buy a poster because I go to this. I have friends that live in California, and if I want posters, I'll go to this poster place. Plus, I don't know how expensive they are.
75, 50, 60. Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable, actually. I paid more for these.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have to have them framed.
Some go up to 200 or so. But
yeah, that's pretty reasonable. One night I was at, I got some passes. You know, once you go to the film festival, you get on lists and you get to get a lot of previous screenings. And they were giving away posters. And I bought them. It was like $2 or $5 or whatever. My friend of mine adores the movie Choose Me.
Yeah.
That's another Alan Rudolph movie. And this poster is gorgeous. So I bought it for him and I gave it to him, and now he's got it mounted. It looks beautiful. But that was really, I thought that was a find. And now when they give out posters for like the new movies, I save them. I figured someday maybe they'll be worth some money. I'll leave them in my will.
Anything else you want to say? Or?
I just a movie lunatic, that's all.
You did a good job. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome.
I really appreciate this.
Sure.
You're more interesting than Jeff. It was funny. Well, I'm not going to put that in the camera. It was funny because you